Welcome to the weekly astrological weather. This is your place to get practical guidance for not only navigating with the cosmic tides, but thriving with the cosmic tides. And we are doing this today on an unusual day. It's December 18th, Friday. And the reason why we're not going to be doing this weekly weather on Monday, like we normally do, is because on Monday is the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, and we're going to be doing a ceremony that is open to all of you. So any of you who are not registered, who didn't register for the panel event, you can still join us for the ceremony. You just go to astrologyhub.com/2021, put your name and email in, and we will send you the join link and all the details. So we'd still love to have you for that, but it was going to interfere with our weekly weather. And we like to do the ceremonies, especially big ones like this, at the exact moment when it's going to be happening. So that's why we're here today on Friday. But today we're going to be covering all of next week until next Monday.
Monday the 21st.
Beyond that.
Monday the 28th. Yeah.
Monday the 28th. So you're going to get...
I'm off in my days here, Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to get the full picture. And we get to be together next week several times, because not only do we have that solstice ceremony on the 21st, you're welcome to join astrologyhub.com/2021. It's free. But we also have Anne and Rick Levine, the three of us talking story, as we say in Hawaii, on Tuesday, the 22nd. And that is going to be at 3 p.m. Pacific. So 3 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday, the 22nd. That also, of course, is free. And it's going to be not so much a teaching, but more of a just connecting. You can ask some questions, things you want to know, some behind the scenes things, biggest lessons learned of 2020. I have all kinds of things I want to ask them. But I'm also encouraging you to send in anything that you would love to know about Anne and Rick, about this year, about next year. And we're just going to, I'm thinking of it more of like a fireside chat.
Yeah, so, I think that's a great analogy. We're all going to light candles,
Yes.
I don't have a fireplace. I have a little candles. I do.
I don't have a fireplace.
Little fireside chat. Yeah, I think.
Yes.
And I love Rick. I remember at one point I was talking to one of my students and I said, well, you're going to, because she was talking to me about being an astrologer. And I'm like, you're not going to be an astrologer like I am. And the cat started to howl. I have a cat that howls when I make clients upset. She had a lot of Scorpio in return. Wow. And I said, the cat's howling. Are you upset? She goes on. I said, no, you've got a great chart to be an astrologer, but you're going to be an astrologer like he is.
Ooh.
More for the group. Like I talk to clients one-on-one all day long. I said, you would be really bored doing that. That's not something you'd want to do. So we went away. We actually went on a retreat, and I was on a retreat with Rick, an OPA retreat, and my student came. So I introduced her to him. And, they kind of connected because they're both Aries and they both have this, they're very passionate. And of course, like a few years later, I have this client come and she goes, referred by that student. And she goes, she's not reading clients anymore. And I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. And she goes, are you any good? And I said, I'm okay. But, astrology is really a personal decision, like who you connect with. And what had happened was she was like, I really don't like reading clients. I like doing this more teaching, big work, kind of out for the community. So Rick, as a guide and a mentor and a teacher, where he does this, he's so brilliant. And he comes in with this, he's all this physicist. And I remember hearing him lecture at a conference and going, oh, my brain hurt, right?
Yes.
When I was a baby astrologer, because he's been around a while, and that's not saying he's old. That's just saying he was an old astrologer, teaching when I started, right? So wow. But yeah, he's just brilliant. So he's got this whole science physics business, and then he has this, astrology, and they blend beautifully. So. Yes. Yeah, he's brilliant. So, but I was like, here's my student. You're going to be like him. Talk to her. And he did. He was really, very kind and gracious, and she became kind of like him in a girl form. Yeah, so it's good.
Well, I should probably know who she is.
She's very private, so I'm not saying her name on here. But you probably do know who she is. Yes.
Okay, the two of you together, again, you both. I've said this before, and it could be taken the wrong way, but I'm just going to say it again because this is how it feels. This is how it feels. There's these stories of Hawaiian aunties who would go out to the ocean with their aprons and open their apron, and fish would jump in. They would volunteer.
Oh, wow.
And so this year, you and Rick have felt like that for me, because you both basically just jumped in and said, we're willing to be here for this community, and we're willing to be here consistently every single week. And this was not planned. This wasn't like, oh, I'm going to like reach out to Anne and Rick. And it all just organically happened.
Yep.
And it's been such a blessing for this community. And so to have you two on together just feels so appropriate and fitting and perfect. And you're both hilarious and so bright and sharp that is just, I'm going to be on my toes. Be ready for this. So thank you for doing that. And he's just as excited as you are. He was talking on the Cosmic Connection yesterday. He's like, I'm really excited about this. Anne and I we've met in person, but we've never been on an, in an online format like this together in one place. So it's very exciting. So everybody, please tune in for that. Of course, it'll be recorded. If you miss it, no worries. It will be on the podcast. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on our website. So
you'll be able to find us.
You'll be able to find us. Yes. Okay. So Anne, I know we've already covered like the weekend and into the solstice, but I kind of don't think we could cover it enough because it's that big. You know what I'm saying?
It is. It's a 20-year cycle, baby. So half an hour. What is it? How much can we give it? We're going, oh yeah. So we were talking before we come on, because we have a little debrief thing, or, what are the themes? And one of the things we were talking about was, the other day I was watching Kelly Clarkson with Garth Brooks. And of course, she's getting a divorce. And she said to him, I've been singing your song, The Dance, since I was a little kid. She said, but the other day, I really heard the words and it made me cry. And I thought that's such an appropriate song for this time. So if you guys haven't listened to The Dance, you should go listen to it, because he says, I would have missed the pain, but I wouldn't want to miss the dance. And as we're at this ending stage with all these planets leaving what has been a momentous year, and for many people, a year of much loss or much transformation. Sometimes they were really up for it. Other times they were like, not so much. But it also, we know there's an inevitability of change. And so the lyrics are looking back, I wouldn't change it, but boy, it was hard. But also, it's a beautiful song. So if you've never heard it.
I'm looking at the lyrics right now.
Yeah, read them.
Okay, so looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. So, and now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Yeah, our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I would have had to miss the dance. So,
the next one is very good too. You have the next one there?
Yeah, it's kind of doing some funky like jump around thing. Hold on.
Amanda's having internet problems, just saying.
Well, I am.
It's the solar flares, right?
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because I mean, it's been so pronounced for me, and I normally have very, very, very solid internet. Like, it's never something I worry about. But yesterday on the Cosmic Connection and this morning when we tuned in, it's doing this weird thing. Can you talk to us about why that might be happening?
Yeah, we're having really big solar flares. So one of the things you can do to your computer is you can sign up for NASA alerts, NASA, and they send you a note when there's big solar flares. And so when there's solar flares, there are disruptions in communication, because it's this huge EMF, which Rick could explain a lot better than I do. There's this huge electromagnetic flare that comes across. It's what makes the northern lights happen. But now we can see the northern lights down as far as Tennessee. And I went out of my apartment the other day because they were talking northern lights, and I went, we don't have great ones, not like when you're up at the top of the earth, but we had them. There were colors up there. And so we have these frequencies hitting Earth, bombarding us. And of course, they're electric, so they interfere with the network. networks. So if you've been having network issues, that's probably part of it. And they're down at the bottom part of the sun. And the last time they blew up like this was the 60s. Traditionally, when there are solar flares, there is disruption in the world because it's electric. You know, we're all electrical. If you were a little kid and you did the frog leg, you know, you stimulated and the leg muscle moved, right? We're all electrical beings. So when we get bombarded with a little extra dose from the sun, it makes people a little wilder. And so, but it also affects our telecommunication networks. So
would you say
Google was out for an hour last week, something, you know, I was like, I missed it because I was doing something else. But yeah, it's just being aware that it's coming in. And it also makes everybody like, I have to do something. I'm feeling really emotional. And we don't know. Amanda said, when's it going to be over? I said, it's a solar flare. The sun doesn't tell us. It just sends us stuff.
All the stars tell us. How come the sun doesn't tell us? Come on.
I don't know. He's a big guy and he doesn't talk. He just shoots stuff at us. So we go, okay, solar flare. But I do encourage you to look up, you know, get the alerts from NASA because they'll let you know what level's coming. You know, and sometimes it makes the news, which it did the other day, was the northern lights are coming. Well, whenever you hear northern lights are coming, you're hearing solar flares because that's when we really experience them and see them. And, you know, so it's good. Yeah.
And
so
would you say
being hit by them.
Would you say also the shift of Saturn into Aquarius is contributing to that disruptive?
Yeah, well, it's going from Earth to air. Remember, I used the analogy last week of taking off of the plane. Saturn took off, Jupiter's still on the Earth. And Jupiter is kind of how we relate to people. So he hasn't taken off yet. He takes off, I think, tomorrow. I should know this, but he takes off. And when then he and Saturn meet up, because remember, they're also in an ending cycle. They're ending a 20-year cycle between now and Monday. So it's also an opportunity for a lot of endings, which we already have a lot with eclipses anyway, you know. So, but this is like the wrap-up chapter. And then we go, okay, now new energy coming in. It's air energy, it's ideas. You know, and someone wrote a question saying, well, you know, there were two Aquarius conjunctions. One was here. I said the initiating conjunction, when we went into air back in the 1200s, that was when the Magna Carta was signed. And yes, it's in air for 200 years. So there was another conjunction in Aquarius, but you always look at the initiating chart to see what the story is. So when you guys do the ceremony on Monday, and all of us should do one, look at where 0 Aquarius is in your chart because you're initiating a new 20-year cycle there. And look at any planets you have at 0 because they're all being initiated too. They're all going, oh my God, there's a new guy in town. And it'll be a little bit like April 4th through June 30th because that was when Saturn went in there. But he said, I'm not going to stay. I'm just going to wake it up. And then I'm going to go backwards. But now we're initiating a new chapter. So back then in March, April is when you and I started doing this weekly thing. And it's probably around when you started with Rick too. I don't know when he started, but
it was within a few weeks.
Yeah. So that was Saturn in Aquarius, right? And you know, I'll take a little propers here. We're older Saturnian astrologers, Aquarian, talking to the group, your group, right? So that's the energy. And now Jupiter Pluto we're actually meeting on air, which we've never done before, but we're having our little powwow next week after the conjunction. It could have been any time this year, Amanda, but why then? Oh, okay. There's the elders are meeting with the woman who runs the group, right? Astrology is very literal. Yeah. And I always say this to my students, keywords, 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 because you go, okay, there's new groups forming. There's new ideas coming in. There's a new watch for what you get exposed to. Watch what comes in and says, oh, wow, great idea. Because air is ideas. And right now, Jupiter's still bumping around on the Earth, even though Saturn's taken off. And then Jupiter's going to take off and meet him. And it's going to be a little bit like remember those flying guys, the planes that fly for the Navy? You know, they all are in formation.
The Blue Angels.
The Blue Angels. It'll be a little like the Blue Angels on Monday because they're going to be flying right next to each other starting. And everybody can see them. You've been watching them all summer.
It's breathtaking, you guys. I literally almost lost it last night. I was driving. I turned a corner. I looked up and there they were, like these two diamonds just getting so close to each other with the crescent moon. It was literally breathtaking. If you can find a way to see it, it's happening soon after sunset. So
after sunset.
Yeah. So, and then you could, but that was, for me, it was at least 3 more hours after sunset where I was still able to see it. So yeah, exactly. So I highly recommend it. If you don't know what you're looking for, just get star chart on your phone. It's free and you can hold it up to the sky and see what everything is. And it's literally breathtaking. And I took a picture. The picture almost looks like a drawing. It's kind of cool. But if you think about where you were at 20 years ago, so I was like, wow, I was 22. And in 20 years from now, I'll be 62. And when I was 22, there's no way I could have possibly imagined my life at 42. Like just no chance I would have imagined what's happening right now. So what is this next 20-year cycle going to bring into your life that you can't even fathom, you can't even imagine? And just being open to that, the possibilities there and the surprise me element, so, and of course there was a lot of loss in those 20 years too, a lot of loss, a lot of pain, a lot of joy, a lot of all of it. But life lived. Yeah. So, okay. So we have solar flares, we have Saturn going into Aquarius, we have Jupiter going into Aquarius tomorrow. We have the solstice on Monday, and we have this theme around, you brought up the dance, which is, obviously he has a broken heart in that song. Like it's a song that is acknowledging the pain of losing someone that he really, really loved. And yet there's the gratitude for the time. There's the acknowledgement of this being part of life. And then we were talking earlier before we went live, we're all being asked to also lean into what's next. I can't tell you how many people who know nothing about astrology that I've talked to this week that are like, I feel like I'm in this in between. Like I'm getting ready for something, but I don't know what it is. And I'm like, whoa, that's so cool, because we literally just talked about that on Monday, how this is like, it's between what was and what will be. And we're sort of hanging out there in the middle of that.
Completely. And we don't necessarily know where we're going. We just know we're taking off. Back to the butterfly analogy, you're on the your caterpillar on the little leaf of Earth. And as we crack and hatch and our wings dry, we get to fly off and do something else. So what, the existential difference between a butterfly and a caterpillar, there's a great book by Melody, I remember her last name, called Hope for the Flowers. And it's the story of that transformation. It's a great book. It's a kid's book, but it's one of those ones adults really like too. Yeah. And she talks about that, like, what have you built? What's important to you? And that metamorphosis we go through when we realize that we built that, but now there's a whole new chapter, there's a door opening. And the quote that Helen Keller, I think it was, said, we stand often looking at the door that's closed rather than looking at what's opening. So remember that the endings always bring us a new thing, but they also bring us, sadness over what happened. So 20 years ago, I said, I want to be an astrologer, not a corporate girl anymore. And the 20 years before that was me working in sales and talking to people. And that's when I got my cat Max, who just died 20 years ago. He was an old cat. So he came in when I was sitting at Pepsi going, I think I want to be an astrologer. So I knew I wanted to do that, but that I would be sitting here 20 years later, talking to you, talking to all of your people, being an astrologer. I just was like, that's what I want to do, So I didn't have a plan, but I had a vision, so that's where we are. We're at that crystalline little vision about what's our dream, because the Aquarius planets are the hopes and dreams house. And when we saw the protesters over the summer, or I would say the people asking for change over the summer, they were asking for a different vision. They were asking for a vision that was more in alignment with community, with collective, with what's for the greater good of all. How do we do that greater good of all, rather than our own individual missile silo of Capricorn, this is mine, you can't have any. Aquarius says, I have enough, let me share it with you. And so it's a real shift from what I've accomplished to what does the group need? What's the bigger vision for the group, for the collective, for the community? And who is your community? Who are the people that you feel these are people? And you're going to have intersectional, you don't have to have just one. When I was 40, I had a birthday party. I'm Aquarius rising. So I brought in all my different groups. I had my tennis group. I had my group from Fire Island House. I had my friends. I had my neighbors. I had, people I'd known for years. And they were all standing in little pods talking to each other. It was a party in Central Park. And one of my friends said, you can see all your groups here. And I looked around and I was like, right, there's the tennis group. There's, it was very interesting because they all were talking to each other, but they were all at my birthday party. So it was kind of, it was like 200 people in the park. And I was like, they're all my tribe, So it was, and I hadn't found the astrology tribe yet. I hadn't found them because I hadn't found astrology yet at my 40th birthday. So, I think we look at our lives and we understand that there's these chapters. And this is such a huge chapter on so many levels because it is a 10th house for, the Anima Mundi chart. It's the 10th house if it's our vocation. And, a lot of times people say that's your career, but I like to think of the 10th house as your calling. And so the conjunction's happening in the house of the calling. And then the Capricorn planets have been in the house of the calling, and now they're going into the house of hopes and dreams. So they're right at the edge of that. And they're saying, that was your calling. It got you this far. And now where? Now what? What's next? So it's a very exciting time, not without its stresses, but it also there's a sense of being able to catch a breath because both of these planets are going into air, which gives us, instead of Capricorn, a lot of times gets aligned with fear because it's a rock, but now we're flying with a bigger vision. So we're going to feel the skies open up a bit more. And so that's helpful. So look for who I can help. And in the growing season in Northern Hemisphere, Aquarian is when you finish the work on your own stuff and you go help your neighbor. You go help raise a barn. You go have a quilting bee. You go work in your community. So this is a great time for us to figure out our communities, figure out where we want to hang out and what that looks like. And you're going to really feel the shift. It's big. It's got this, woo, wow. And the energy going from earth to air. I mean, whatever night it was, I was up all night. I kept hopping out of bed and getting in. I just couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And because I'm like, all right, I know it's taking off, but man, can I get a good night's rest?
Yes.
But it's huge. It's a huge shift. And I think, stabilizing is really the job next week. That when the airplane's taking off and you're kind of like in your chair and you're like, oh, I wanted to just get to where it goes like this, it's that kind of energy. So big stuff.
All right. So what about after the solstice? So we have the solstice on Monday. We have this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. What does the rest of the week look like?
Well, Mars kicks up a bit next week. Mars has, he meets up with Eris on the 22nd, and he squares Pluto on the 23rd. Right? So that is that discord energy. So there's a little bit of I want to punch somebody. I want to take them out. And just know that there's a little boost of anger here that you may feel kick. That's probably the hardest part because this Mars-Eris conjunction is moving into its square with Pluto. Remember, this is the third of 3. It squared Pluto in August. It squared it in October. This is the one where we say, okay, this is what we're doing. But Mars square Pluto is a war aspect. Or it's an invasion aspect. So it can also be a little intense. And that's the day after the ingress, right? So it's kind of bundled in the ingress. The good news is you have a vision of what you want to do. You got a lot of energy to get it done. That's the positive. The harder part is it doesn't mean it's not going to be without some stress because Mars square Pluto is got an aggressive piece to it. That said, my sister was a basketball coach for 30 years. And I love when the ambulances play. The ambulances always play when I talk about stuff like this. It's always, when I'm in an important part of the reading, they go off too.
I know, but
Mars square Pluto. No.
It's perfect it's like this aggravating Mars-Pluto sort of like, yes.
And it's when I'm in a reading, when I'm in, it's like, yeah, it's a little loud. And they've been really quiet. So I'm like, all right. ambulance is way in. But Mars square Pluto is also our ability to take action. So my sister would mail me basketball recruits, and I would look at their charts and say, and they all had Mars Pluto at squares. It was very competitive. I got to get this done. And I initially, when it first happened, I'm like, God, Mars. But then I'm like, thinking, well, Mars is action, Pluto is war. A basketball game, it's a little mini war, right? But it's that drive to get it done too. It's got a very strong drive energy. And so that part's helpful, even if it's a bit harsh. So that's the good news of it. And we've already had 2 passes. So we know where we want to take action. Now we have to just figure it out one last pass. And then in January, Mars goes into Taurus and he squares Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. So he's going to say, okay, the vision is this. Now I'm going to build something when he gets there in January. So it's just kind of it's not going through all 3 in Aries,
right?
Capricorn. It's the other 2 have shifted into air and they're going to go to Mars and Taurus. So what is it you want to build, Mars? And he goes, I want to build this, because Mars and Taurus wants to build things rather than fight. Now we're still got Mars and Aries through the beginning of January, but we're going to feel like, okay, this is important to me to dedicate to. And so I think of it as, you want to kind of always be conscious, because Mercury is also combusts the sun. You want to be conscious about, whoa.
Someone's like slamming you.
That's what happens when you're on the internet. People can ring in. Sorry about that.
Okay.
You want to, and it's not 3 o'clock, so I don't know what that's about. But at any rate, so as Mars comes in, it's got this energy of how do we start things? How do we take action? And we interrupt, like we just had. And it interrupts us to have us go, well, what's important to me? What is important for me to act on? So it's a big, big time of turbulence. But with Mercury combusts the sun, it's also being very aware of, I know who that is. It's also being very aware of what the words are we say, because those are, we're making a vow, we're making a commitment. So you want to be really conscious, committing positively, committing to vision, committing to ideas, rather than committing to a curse. Like, I will never have, say, no, I will have, because the planets are really listening to what we're saying our vision is now.
Wow. This is huge. So when is Mercury combust the sun?
Now.
Right now. Okay.
He's exactly combust on December 19th, but he's Cazimi then, but he's combust. He's sitting right on it. Cazimi combust. Cazimi is very focused, very smart, very intense. And then he's combust, which is dedicated. So it's like right in that ingress time. He shifts. Well, they're persistent. I don't know who they are. Huh? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So
whoever they are, I'm going to keep hanging up on you. Stop.
So you're saying, it's too bad they're not watching the show.
They're not.
So you're saying that Mercury's combust the sun. The words we say right now, and this is going to be happening on the solstice too. So if we're making intentions, like that's actually adding more power.
That's why I'm saying it's really being conscious of what they are. Yeah.
And being okay. So Anne, I was in a conversation with someone the other day, and they said they went through kind of like their health, which is not very strong. There's lots of things that they've dealt with over the last 30 years, 40 years, a lot of compromise on their immune system and all these things. And the final words were, I just really don't want to get COVID. And I went, ooh, it's like spell casting 101, don't, like when we use the negative, we're literally blocking out. Yes. And so I wasn't in a position where I could say you might want to reword that. You might want to shift the energy in there, because there's another way to say that that would be much stronger. And if we did like muscle testing on you, or my love calls it electromagnetic field testing, because it's actually not really testing muscles.
You're testing your reaction to it.
Yeah. And if you said, I don't want to get COVID, your body would be weak. Yeah. But if you said, I want health and vitality, even not I want, I mean, even if you change it to I am healthy and vital, that would be the strongest.
Yes.
But even want would be stronger than don't want.
Well, so, remember, the mind does not hear negative. So you're basically saying, I want COVID.
Exactly.
You say, I don't want cheap. You pull in cheap. You say, I want generous. You do a positive version of it. Totally.
Exactly. I don't want
to manifestation. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be sick. I don't any of those things. And so I think what you're saying is that right now, especially to be mindful of the words we're using, how we're using them. And the words are just an extension of the energy. It's not really, I mean, the words alone can start to shift the energy, but there's a very different energy that is coming through when we're saying an affirmative and we're claiming something like, I am this, I am prosperous, I am healthy. It is very different. And your body receives the message differently in your cells.
Yes. You have a whole different focus. And also remember, when you're afraid, I don't want COVID. There's a whole energy of that wouldn't be good for me to have that, so then your body goes, oh, you want it? Because remember, it's like when you, at least for me, it's been two months now without pasta, Amanda. I'm very proud of myself.
You're so good.
But I have this little pasta boys, and I'm like, no. We're going to go have some cauliflower soup, but I know I have to divert it, right? Because it's coming in and it's going, So there is a lot of fear being sowed. And I mean, I've had this virus. It is not fun. But we also want to look at it and say, okay, what's the positive version of that? What's the vision of it? And it's also being careful. I had one client, I was teaching her this, and she had a guy who went, no talking. So she made a list. She did a little process. She said, very communicative. So she brought a guy in who would follow her around talking. He would talk to her mother for half an hour every day. Her mother loved the guy. And she goes, I said, well, he's all the other things. You asked for very communicative. She goes, I didn't realize that's what. I said, well, you asked for it. I mean, it's certainly trainable where you say, don't talk to me for half an hour after I get home instead of following me around the house talking to me. But you're never going to run out of things to talk to him about, right? And she's like, no, I really like all the other parts. And I said, and my mother really loves him. And I said, he talks to your mother for you. It's a good thing. She's like, it is, actually.
Yes.
So, it's also being conscious what you ask for, right?
Right.
Just very literal. Right. I'm very aware of it. I'm very cautious on some level, because I remember one time coming home from a college reunion and one of my friends was giving me a hard time about not dating. And I said, all right, I want something dark and hairy in my bed. I get it. I'm ready for a hairy. I like the hairy guys, right? A little Italian Mediterranean look. That night I woke up and I had a mouse in my bed.
Oh my God.
So it was four-legged hairy, right? And the cat Max was like crazy because I brought him home a real mouse. And he and I used to play catch the mouse, where I'd throw the mouse and he'd bring it to me and I'd throw it again. Well, here was this real mouse that he'd brought me that I picked up. I went to college upstate, and I was like, not four legs, two-leg hairy. And this little mouse, and I said to him, 30 years ago, I was a little country mouse. I moved to New York. I had a really good time. I brought you here, but you need to leave because he's going to kill you, and I don't want you in my bed anymore. Right? But it was, the mouse took off, it was. And then the next day I was reading my Vanity Fair at lunch, because I have lunch and then I lay down and read. I like to pretend I'm Spanish or whatever, a little siesta. And Max hops on the bed with a little mouse, his legs wiggling. I screamed, the mouse took off. And I'm like, all right, the mouse and I clearly we just need to lock Max out of the room and tell the mouse to leave. And the mouse did leave, which was good. We lived happily ever after. He never brought him to me again. But I was like, oh my God. And then I went, and you said you wanted something dark and furry in your bed. You just need to be a little more literal. 2 legs, not 4, right? So,
yes.
Yeah.
Human. A human dark hairy.
A human dark and furry. Yeah, 2 legs. I don't think of animals as having. She's back again. She's persistent.
Gosh.
I don't know. I don't have any clients right now, so I don't know what this is.
Wow, amazing. Okay. Well, so we have Mercury combust the sun. We have Mars squaring Pluto. We have Mars squaring Eris.
Mars joining Eris.
Conjoining Eris.
Brother and the sister getting together. So if you watched Wonder Woman when she says, "Okay, brother, let's get it on," that's that. They should have named her Eris, not Diana.
I know. No, so she, Georgia Stathis at the panel last week, which you all can still tune into, by the way. When you sign up for the ceremony, you'll get the replay links. But she said that in 2021, it's very important for us to invite the bad witch to the party. And that's the Eris energy, right? Like that, instead of continuing to say, no, there's no place for you, there's no place for you here. It's like inviting her in, embracing her, and saying, all right, well, what role do you play, and what do you help initiate and bring forward? And Wonder Woman's such a great example of Eris, because what I love about the Wonder Woman example is she is truly, it's all about love, what she's doing. I mean, and I think probably Eris is too. It's just,
well, yeah, she's doing that to get you to change.
Right.
So if you're going to do stupid, she's going to smack you. But if you're going to do smart, there's that point when she's going into the DMZ and they're like, you're not, she goes, that's my job.
Right.
I'm supposed to get this stalemate to move.
Right.
And then she goes in and she's whacking the things off with her bullet or wrists.
Yeah.
But she knows that if you go into it and you deal with it rather than running away from it, that's better. And I avoid conflict myself. Sometimes I don't, but when I send out something conflictual and somebody writes back, I kind of have my assistant read it. I'm like, you read it, not me. I don't want to know what they said. But I also, it's understanding, how we deal with that bad witch. What message she wants to bring. And again, the whole idea of, if you do the energies, you invite them in, and they can come in and you work with them at a different level, rather than when you exercise them and send them away, they become more powerful.
Yeah.
Because somebody else is going to do them, or you're not in charge of owning them. So this is a big week because we're doing all this shifting. And I think the most important thing is this initiation energy, followed by this passion, following your enthusiasm, following your passion, following the thing that invites you, that looks interesting, that you want to go compete for. Mars, Eris square Pluto, that you want to win that. This using the positive energy of the Mars Pluto square, which is, I have an enormous amount of fuel here that I've been building up since July, when Mars went into Aries, as he goes through this third pass. And remember, Mars in Aries is a very pure form of Mars. He's straightforward. He knows what he likes. He likes what he likes. And he's very directed. So that's the good part. He is arguing with structures that need to shift and change, fine. But that's his job. His job is to take on the stuff. And if you remember Wonder Woman, they didn't teach her who she really was. They didn't say to her, you're the Mars killer. They said to her that this little thing in the woods in the cave was. And the mother and the aunt had that conversation. Should we tell her? No, don't tell her. She'll find it out herself. And so as we look at this energy and we understand our strength, I think that's what you really want to watch for, is like, what's my strength? What's it being fueled by? What wrong do I want to right? How do I want to break up this DMZ? And at the end, when she's holding the thing up and the poison lady's under her, and Aries is saying to her, kill her, kill her. And she looks at him and she goes, no, I stopped her. I don't need to kill her. And then she put the vehicle down. That's Eris in her purest form, where she looks and she says, no, I made the point. Right? I made the point. It's big. It's a big week. And so if you're feeling all these energies, you're right in tune. And if you're just watching them play out in the world, bless them, thank them, recognize these are energies that invite us to make changes. And that's really what they're for. I mean, they'll we're on Earth for a little 60, 80, 100 years, whatever. We have our path. What is it? So that energy, it's very positive, but it's also a little, I always close my eyes when planes take off. I just trust the pilot's going to do it. I'm like, and I say my Hail Marys, and then we get stable, and then I open my eyes up and I look out the window. So you can close your eyes too. That's totally cool.
Yeah. For some reason, I always uncross my legs and hold hands with whoever I'm with. That's like my little ritual. It's so weird. I don't know why, but it just feels like the right thing to do.
Yeah, everybody's got one.
Yes. So
I have a friend that pats the plane when she gets on it. Nice plane, like a little dog. Nice plane. You're good.
Oh. So having our little rituals for this initiatory, and again, I think this entire community, with the level of awareness that we have and the level of reverence that we're able to bring to these commemorating moments or these initiatory moments, that energy is infused into the way that things are going to continue unfolding. And I just sometimes think about how astrology wasn't a part of my life 10 years ago. I had no clue about it. And I would feel like batted around, things would happen. And it's not that things don't happen anymore. Things continue to happen, but there's an awareness that enables a certain level of grounding and peace around it, even if it hurts, even if it sucks. It's like this understanding that it's all happening and it's unfolding the way it needs to. And there's a gift in all of it, always, if we look for it. So taking this time to be grateful for the last 3 years of Saturn and Capricorn. I know it's like technically 2.5, but the 3-year span and all the things you've learned. And as you're looking forward, it's like in the dance, it's acknowledging the things, even if they're painful, that made you who you are in this moment, and bringing that gratitude in forward with us.
Yeah.
So Anne, besides Mars square Pluto on the 23rd, are there any other aspects, 24th, 25th, 26th, like what else is happening?
Those are the big ones, because this initiating energy this week is just release, let go. And of course, we're going from the new moon to the full moon. So we're still in eclipse season. So we do have nice moons next week with the moon in Taurus over Christmas, which is a lovely moon with good aspects. And then the moon in Gemini, Sunday, Monday with good aspects. And then we have the nice full moon in Cancer, Capricorn on Tuesday, the 29th. So it really is, once you take off in the plane, you're not on Earth anymore. You're flying. That, you're going to be on the plane for an hour or two, or depending on where you're going, 7 hours if you go to Europe, but you're flying now. So there's really, adjusting, get your book out, get your computer out, kind of think about things. It's an air time. Once we're still releasing because we're in eclipse season until next Tuesday, but we're getting a vision of what we want to take action for is probably the best way to say it with that Mars Pluto. And those are the big things this week. This last week, the one we're in now, is very turbulent, and we had the Electoral College in the United States. Of course, I'm US centric. We had the thing, we just found out there was some internet breach. We had, that looks like they might actually pass a law and take care of people before they go home for the holidays. So that will cause a moment of, okay, let's relax. Let's let this roll. Let's get a bigger vision. Like we aren't like in the muck and the mire. We're in Aquarius until spring of 2023. I think in March it goes out. So this is a relaxing into that flight. Relaxing into that big picture energy. And because it's initiating, a lot of times, when I said I wanted to be an astrologer, I said to my dad, and he's like, I want my college tuition money back. I'm like, well, all right, whatever, go right to school. But I know I'm going to go do that. I don't know how, I don't know where, I'm just going to go do it. So everybody think back on what you started in May of 2000. And if you're older, think back what you started in 80. And if you're really old, think back what you started. Think back what you started in 60, because that was the last time the conjunction happened. That was in Capricorn. So each of these years you built stuff. What'd you build? And now you're building an air project, right? A vision, an idea, a new perspective, and look at where it lands in your chart, where 0 Aquarius is. Come to the thing on Monday where we're going to talk about it. And you can look at where it lands in your chart. Because that's where you're initiating the new thing. In my case, it was the 3rd house of the mind and communication. And now it's 12th house groups working behind the scenes, working on my spiritual path the next 20 years, whatever that means. But, writing, teaching, communicating, air sign stuff. So it's a big shift. And going from earth to air is a big change. So enough for us to kind of rock in our chair, hold hands, put our feet firmly on the ground, say Hail Mary, whatever your ritual is around taking off in an airplane. Do that this week because that's what we're doing. Both planets are taking off. Yeah. And you know how like the one wheel leaves and then the other wheel leaves?
Yes.
Right. So the Saturn's kind of there, and then the Jupiter's there, and then they do that steep ascent where you're kind of like this, and they don't let you get out of your chair and move around. So it's like you're like this going up, and then they go, okay, ding ding, you can take off your seatbelts. You can take off your seatbelts when we get to January.
So, Anne, I have a question about the Mars square Pluto. So, and then how Mars square Jupiter and Saturn are going to be different this time around. So, the Mars squares have happened in threes. We had the first pass, the second pass, this is the third pass. Mars square Pluto is still in Capricorn, right? Because Mars is still in Aries, Pluto is still in Capricorn. So this is sort of like remnants of the thing that we've been doing for this year, right?
The stinky thing in your refrigerator.
Yeah, that thing. Okay, but the Mars square Jupiter and Saturn, when those happen in January, correct? January, they'll be in Aquarius and Mars will be in Taurus. So even though it's the third time, right, in the series, everything's different, right? So how is that, like, is it still a closing square?
Yep, still closing. Yep.
Now, how is it closing in different signs and everything?
Well, there's how we take action, because remember the conjunction was in March when we all started this journey, and then the Aries was make your choices. That was July, August, September, October, November, December, January. Now we've made our choices, and then when we get to January, we say, now that those choices have been made, what's your new vision? And then Mars and Taurus is springtime. We think of Taurus when the fertilized plant, daffodils, cherry blossom, all those things blooming. That's the Taurus time, right? So it's taking physical action, Taurus, to plant your dreams, to plant your structures, to plant your ideas, air, right? So all the work you've been doing this year, getting out of stuff, or looking at, or stuff leaving, depending on your experience, or seeing everything change structurally. Now we come in and we go, okay, the changes have happened. Now what? And we all have an option in this moment to step in and say, this is what I'm doing. So it's an important time for giving ourselves the bigger picture vision, not so much in the mundane world of what am I actually physically doing. It's more about, and it's more optimistic because it's air, and it's not as physical. It's not as stuck feeling. So the people that are feeling really stuck because all these planets are grounding, now it's like, okay, let's have more action. Mars, physical, let's figure out what to do rather than fighting about stuff, which is Mars and Aries. Mars and Aries likes to fight. Mars and Taurus says, we got work to do. We got to plant shit. We got to fertilize, got to get the bees in. You know how the bees move around. And I was talking to somebody the other day, his father's a beekeeper, and the bees are on a truck and they're going around fertilizing things. I'm like, really? They truck them? He goes, yeah, the bees are out.
Bees are amazing, by the way.
I'm like, all right. So Mars and Taurus is the fertilizing, the birds and the bees and all those little cherry blossoms. Not everybody makes a cherry, but they all have a little visit from a bee. So we're going to think of it as your bee business. You're going to go visit Jupiter and Saturn. Mars is going to say, you want to do this? Can I fertilize you? And they're going to go, yes, you can. And I don't really want to be fertilized. I just want to be pretty and hang out on the tree. But I'll be willing to watch you fertilize, because Aquarius is also a little voyeuristic, right? So we're also going to go, what are you fertilizing? And you're going to go, I'm fertilizing. Oh, I got fertilized by that. Yeah, it's a good baby making time too. Like a lot of babies, if you're trying to make a baby, this is it. Get ready,
Okay. All right. So let's do an in summary.
Yeah.
What we have. Okay. So in summary, check out The Dance by Garth Brooks. Listen to that. This is letting go of the endings and looking forward to all of these new beginnings. This is not a time to be like, oh, I want to do this. I have enthusiasm for us, but I don't have a plan, so I can't. It's like, this is the time to follow that enthusiasm as much as you can, given your current situation, and to continue taking steps towards that thing that's pulling you, calling you.
The thing think of Aquarius as the exciting thing too.
Yes, the thing that's exciting.
The thing that the light, if you go into like a party outside and there was a time when I was in Sedona and we were told there was this drumming circle. So I was with a group of people. I said, well, I heard about this drumming circle. So we're in a really dark parking lot. And one of my students goes to me, you know, I thought you were taking us, like, this is like a little scary. I said, no, there's supposed to be a party around the corner. And it's kind of like Star Wars bar, right? So you're going to go into Star Wars bar, but you're in the dark right now. So it's that kind of, and you know, you think about the bar scene in Star Wars, there's all these different little things to look at and see and kind of watch. And so that would be another way to think of it, is like you're in the parking lot, it's dark, it's Sedona, they don't allow outdoor lighting, you're in the middle of nowhere, you're with your people, but you're going into the bar, you see the light down at the end and you go towards the light. That's a way to think of it too.
Wow. You know, I didn't realize that about Sedona, that they don't allow outdoor lighting. It's brilliant.
So you can see the stars.
You can see the stars. My God, it's so sad that most people can't see stars anymore. Okay. All right. So
light at night.
Yeah. Okay. There's going to be this energy around community and contribution. So this idea of, I have enough, let me share it with you. And anytime we're in that space of feeling like we can be generous, we are actually affirming that we do have enough to give. So I have enough, let me share it with you. Again, I brought up the example last week of how nature is very much like this. I mean, so you all have been following my garden
adventures.
My garden adventures all year long. I got angry and I don't want to be dependent on these big companies that don't care about us. So I was like, I'm going to start my own garden, which started in pots in the front, which was like kind of successful. Not really. I mean, it definitely not feeding a family on those little pots that I have out front. Phase 2 was like real garden beds, 3 rows, lots of attention to the soil, lots of attention to making sure that it was like really set up right. I'm telling you guys, I have the most abundant, amazing garden now, which is so exciting. And I have so many lettuce greens that I'm going to have to give them away. I'm going to have to like make little boxes of lettuce greens and give them to people, which is really exciting. And pretty soon I'm going to have.
That's the Aquarian, right? Yeah. The Earth created and the Aquarian has abundance. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So this is all happening in the house of hopes and dreams. So what's next? We have on the 23rd, Mars squaring Pluto, Mars and Eris conjunct, and then Mars square Pluto. And so there could be like a boost of anger. I'm thinking of your sirens and the agitated sound.
My background noise is always match. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. A lot of energy to get it done though. So if you want to channel that energy into something productive, you're going to have a lot of energy to do that. And then we have this Mercury combust the sun. So again, super aware of what you're calling into your reality, very mindfully using your language to call in what it is that you actually want, not what you don't want. And this is going to be a time coming up that we're going to be taking physical action to plan our dreams. So we've been tending to the soil. We've been weeding out fear and guilt and shame and all these things that Saturn was showing us usually run rampant for most of us. And we're getting the soil ready so that we can plant our abundant garden in 2021. So this question of now what, like, okay, now what? Because we're sort of in that in between. This is your time to come in and fill that void with, this is what. So now what? This is what. This is, and even if you don't know for sure, you don't need to even focusing on qualities that you want to bring into your life is very powerful. So whatever those qualities are, prosperity, vitality, balance, harmony, whatever, focusing on the qualities can be enough. You don't actually have to know how that will look. Right.
And you may not, like, I didn't know what being I mean, I had a couple of examples of people that were full-time astrologers. I didn't know what it would look like.
Well, plus it's changing so much. I mean, you could have never envisioned being online broadcasting to the world because that didn't happen then.
That wasn't around back then.
Yeah. So being open to what that will look like. This is a time of big picture vision, more optimistic, less physical. So less like feeling stuck. And then this question, what are you fertilizing? So what are you fertilizing with your thoughts? What are you fertilizing with your words? What are you fertilizing with your energy, your actions? Even what are you fertilizing with your dollars? You know, where are you directing that energetic resource of your money? And is that fertilizing the thing that you want to see more of grow?
Yeah.
Right. So lots of opportunity to be very mindful about this process of creation, of co-creation. And then always, like you say, Anne, highest and best.
Right.
Whatever's highest and best.
And looking for people that align with you. That's the other piece. Because what often happens with Aquarian energy is you find people that you go, oh, you're who I'm supposed to walk with. You're my woo-woo friend. You're my astrology friend. You're my teaching me how to do my computer programming friend. Like looking for people that are interested in taking the journey with you, because Aquarian is a community. It's a tribe. It's the audience energy where we witness and we watch, but we also applaud, or we go, ooh, or, you know, if you ever watch a talk show or a comedic people and they go, ooh, and they boo them or they cheer them on or whatever, it's that energy of being a member of the community and the tribe, but also you have your own stake in it. You're there, you're part of it. So it's an interesting, Aquarius is a really interesting sign. I think we're going to have a fun couple of years as we go through it. So
brilliant. And that's the perfect segue. If you're looking for a community of astrology lovers, of astrology students, of people who speak this astrological language, who share things, and it's like, hey, look what's happening in my chart. Does anyone have any input? Bouncing ideas, astrological, even photographs we take of the sky. It's like there's this constant dialogue happening around astrology and how we're living it, how it's impacting our lives, how we're using it in our lives, etc. The Inner Circle is open for enrollment until the 23rd. So if you want, we only open a couple times a year. And the reason why we do that is because when there's a whole new influx of energy, new people joining, we want to hold them. We want to like bring them in, make sure they know what they're doing. It's kind of like the first day of school and you're like, where are my classes? And
where are my classes? What are my teachers? What books do I need?
Exactly. Yeah. So we like to be able to focus our energy on welcoming that new cohort of people. And so we would love to welcome you. This really is for students though. If you're just just tell me what's happening astrologically. Like, I don't want to know how to do it. It's not as rich for you. So I would say, but it's for those people that are like, God, this is really cool. I want to know how this works. And I'm willing to go on a journey with it. Like, I'm not looking for a quick fix. Like, tell me how to read a chart in 10 days, because that's not going to happen. This is going to be something that you travel with, you journey with, you experience month after month after month with a different astrologer as your guide. With this really incredible community of astrology students all over the globe. And you get to interact with the astrologers too. So when you have questions and you want to know more about things, they're active in the community as well. So we would love to have you in the Inner Circle. That's astrologyhub.com/IC21. That's IC stands for Inner Circle. So IC21. And enrollment's open until Wednesday, the 23rd. Yeah, Wednesday the 23rd.
Thursday's the 24th. Yeah,
right.
The other thing, and this is something that's really helpful. I know when I was first learning astrology, you go and talk it to your friends and they all are like, "You're going to talk about this some more?" And I was like, I need some astrology friends,
Yes.
So literally 1995, I put a little ad in the astrology publication in New York, and we have a group that meets at my house now we meet on Zoom, meets at my house once a month, and we talk charts because I needed some astrology friends.
Yeah.
But I want to torture my regular people. So that's the other part, is you can come here and it's like you get to talk astrology. And it's kind of like when we go to a conference and you're in the elevator and someone, well, the Mars is squaring my sun, and you're hearing it talked around you. So the nice part about the Inner Circle is you have like people that talk your language, and you can go in and say it in shorthand and they know what you're talking about.
Yes.
So it's like a little community of friends that allow you to enjoy your language with them. It's like you get to talk another language, which you can't really talk with everybody in your own world.
It's like it's our code language.
It's our code language. It's like a secret society where only it's not secret. Anybody can come.
Exactly.
So, except twice a year, the door's open. Yeah.
Yeah, twice a year the door's open. Only twice a year. But the other thing is, it's like going to a country that speaks another language. If you're trying to learn Japanese, you should probably go to Japan and immerse yourself in it, right? You're going to learn it faster. So being immersed in the language and being a part of the New and the Full Moon broadcast and getting a mastery class teaching every single month, even if you don't follow everything, you're going to over time. I mean, like I astound myself with what I'm able to follow now versus when I started this 5 years ago. Oh my gosh, you guys would talk and I'd just be like, oh, I have no idea. It seems like the audience does. So I'll just let them like ask the questions because I would have no idea what even to ask, you know? So you will be surprised at how much you learn over time. If you're interested in that. Again, I get some people are like, I don't have time to learn astrology. I'm like focused on this other thing. That's totally cool too, because astrology can still be so useful to you, even if you don't. It's like, is your car useful even though you don't know how it works? Yes, it is. So, all right, everybody, thank you. Thank you. So we have these big moments coming up. Please join us for that free solstice ceremony on Monday. Go to astrologyhub.com/2021 to get all the information for how to join. Please join us next week for Rick and Ann on the 22nd at 3 Pacific. If you do have something like that you want me to ask that it doesn't have to be astrologically based. I mean, I'm actually volunteering you guys for that. I haven't really asked you if either of you are comfortable with it, but you can always say no if you don't want to answer a question. But, if you want to ask about their career, if you want to ask about what they would recommend to new people starting out, whatever, if you want to ask what their biggest lessons of 2020 were, whatever it is that you'd like to ask, just send them in. I'll make a little list and we'll decide where we want to go.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Anne, thank you again. And thank you for your flexibility in changing the time this week. Yeah. Thank you for being
I know how crazy people get when it isn't out there. If it's
I know.
They get like, what do you mean no weekly weather? I'm like, all right, we gave it to you early.
Totally.
And really you're processing all the crap that went on this week too. So it's just,
exactly.
It's not a hard week.
Right.
It's a visioning week.
Yes.
It's air. You're on that airplane going like this. Yeah. So until it levels off, you can't get out of your seat anyway to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. So let's ground our feet and hold hands and take off. Hail Mary. Yes. And as always, thank you for being a part of our community and for making, and I'm an Aquarius rising too, Anne.
I know our sun's in conjunction.
Yeah. So this community thing is big. And using technology to create community, that seems pretty Aquarian. Thank you.
Amanda asked me something the other day and I said to her, I don't actually know what your chart is. She's like, you don't know what my chart is? I said, well, you've mentioned a couple points, but I don't know. So she mails it to me. I'm like, she's an Aquarius rising, our ascendants are joined. I'm like, oh, well, that's why I feel like she's a sister, So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it was kind of funny because she's like, I said, no, I just like Amanda's. I get along well with Amanda's. So I also work on names. Like I like Amanda's, there's other names I'm not so fond of, but Amanda's, I always have a good time with Amanda's. Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, I'm happy to be your Amanda here at the weekly astrological weather. Thanks everybody for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye.